Hi, everyone. My name's PK, and I'm so thrilled to have Paul with me today, as well as John Menciamelli. And today's episode is going to be super inspirational because, oftentimes I interview clients who are in their 20s and their 30s, maybe in their 40s. That's, let's face it, the typical type of person who works with me. But last year, I got a call from Paul who explained to me his life journey, his life story. He's north of 50, on the wiser side of 50, and he wasn't sure whether property investing was still possible for him. We'll get into things like bankruptcy. We'll get into things like him being scammed by property spruikers. We'll get into things like divorce and all this kinds of thing. But Paul was genuinely in a place where he didn't have much to his name. He didn't know how he would fund his retirement. And we're getting there. And that is a story. It's not hey, he's on a 60, 100K passive income right now. That's not the story, but we're getting there. That is a story. And also, I'm very grateful because John here in the awesome green shirt, he's the mortgage broker who Paul found out about through at my channel. I've done a couple of videos with John, super humble, super nice guy. And he's really, how you could say, held Paul's hand, so to speak, through this journey and really made it happen. So I didn't want to take credit for what Paul has achieved. And I'm sure John doesn't want to take credit, but rather I wanted to bring the team together and just expose the story so it inspires you. Even if you're not, over 50, even if you're 21 or even if you're 31, this story will inspire you about what you need to do about property investing, how you need to plan for your retirement, and how you can overcome obstacles to get there. So that's enough of me talking. Thank you so much for making time, guys. And like I was saying before we hit record, Paul, once again, huge congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So let's get into it. You called me last year, and I think that was, I don't want to make this up, maybe like August, September time. I can't remember exactly. And then you ended up signing up to the course early this year. And in the meantime, your financial advisor I'm not sure if they're listening or not, but they kind of recommended not to do this because of what you've been through. Maybe just take us through on the journey of the highs and the lows, what you've experienced in your life and how you were, one thing, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you were kind of down and out, just kind of take us through that story.
Yeah, so certainly in my 20s and 30s, as I lived in Melbourne, was living in Elwood and spent my time really at auctions, going to Jan's, I can't remember her name, Jan Summers or someone.
Jan Summers, yeah.
Yes, her break. And it was very similar in terms of, the vanilla, buy and hold strategy. So quite obsessed. My family has a long history of property development and property. I actually started buying some investment properties. They were doing really well. Then I moved to Queensland. And around about that time, my accountant had recommended that I invest heavily in a thing called Barkworth Olives. And I'd known my accountant for a long time, and he was a very lovely man. And I was young enough to think, oh, well, you can kind of, make a few kind of risky ventures. And I actually borrowed a lot of money as well. And I had no idea this was going to happen, but the whole thing went under, and there were lots of suppliers owed a lot of money. And so all of the different people who'd invested in that particular thing, and it was a very, they'd even made olive oils, and it was this really big thing that looked fantastic. And it went under and taking all of us with it. So that kind of meant that I had to sell my investment properties. And it actually I ended up being bankrupt as a result of that, which was kind of the last thing I'd ever expected. And this is kind of my early 40s. So that took me out for 7 years, which is a long time to be out of the market.
Right.
So at that point, I ended up in a new relationship, and we then bought a little house and paid that off pretty quickly. And then I was working very, very hard with a few jobs at the same time, and we bought a whole lot of properties around the GFC, I think, in America. mainly Ohio, and we ended up getting a massive passive income from that. So it wasn't that long ago that I was, after this big journey we'd been on. In the meantime, a family member had decided to take my rather large inheritance, which I could have retired on quite comfortably. So that didn't help at the same time. Anyway, so in the end, the relationship split up. I was meant to be traveling the rest of my life with my ex-partner. So at the end of the day, he ended up with all of the properties that had a very high income because they were worth very little. And I ended up with this little old house in the burbs in Brisbane. And that was about it. And I was like, okay, where do you go to from here? So at that point, I love interior design. So I was thinking maybe I could flip houses. And of course, with the pandemic, the costs went up to the point where that was prohibitive. And I was kind of lost. And also, I think because the big thing for me was that I trusted so many people. There are lots of other stories behind the scene, but they're the big ones. And each of those people, I think I felt, at some level betrayed or let down or something like that. And it still followed property. It's been a passion all of my life. And when I saw your YouTube channel, there was a little ember of hope left. It wasn't much. You couldn't roast a marshmallow on it. And then you started talking about data. And I was like, oh, and being a psychologist, I have a long history of majoring in statistics for far too many years, which I didn't like, but it was very important. And then I watched all of your videos, and it did seem that the data seemed valid and reliable, which to me were the big two things that we were taught at uni anyway. And I thought, this is different. This is not a Spruiker. I'd also been almost caught up with some Spruikers. There's another one, which was a particular, it's a bit of a long story, but there's a particular land banking thing in Acacia Banks in Bendigo. And I put all my super into that. And at the time it was legally okay. Everything was fine. And that also went under. I think ACCC or ASIC or someone, I don't know, shut it down, taking all the investors with it, all the mums and dads and people like me as well with it as well. So, so that was kind of part of my background as well. So when I saw data, I thought, I trust data. I actually don't know whether I trust humans much anymore in this space.
Don't blame you.
And so I thought, I'll look into this a bit more. So we had a conversation, and my financial advisor, knowing my history, was like, why is this guy wanting you to spend so much in the course? Be very careful. And unfortunately, the timing was we were having the boom of a generation. So I would have, if I had have just done it, of course, I would have made a lot more money. But at the same time, I actually had that conversation with you. And I also did feel that over the time that I got to know you virtually through YouTube and all the different people you interviewed, your clients, there was an integrity I could see. Yeah. And a real sort of sense of being a humble person. And so when you talk about, anything, it's like, what does the data say? What does the data say? Not, well, my belief, my sort of ego tells us that hotspotting the areas of what I believe are this, that, and the other. And so I started to trust you as well. And then I watched a video of John Manciamelli. In the old days, I remember watching him avidly on Sky News. So there was a kind of a trust or familiarity there with him.
And by the way, I don't know why John agreed to do YouTube videos with me, given he's been on Sky News. Like that was when I was like, really? Okay, I'll take it. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
PK, you've taught me so much, mate. So you can teach an old dog new tricks, right?
Exactly. So then when I signed onto the course, and it actually is valid and reliable data, and I actually tested it myself by looking at certain suburbs and then investing in another one, and by the time I came back to that suburb, it was too late. because it was, the person I was speaking to said, oh yeah, you and another person can look through this property. And a month later or 6 weeks later or whatever, after buying in one place, they were saying, I'm sorry, can you line up with 20 other people from Sydney and Melbourne, because this is really hot market at the moment. So I could see also from the internal mentorship program, recordings of people who have no interest, that no one ever hears these stories, and there was valid and reliable qualitative data coming from them as well. So this gave me all the confidence in the world. So that's when I got in touch with John as well. And then because of the pandemic, it had actually reduced my income. I'm a self-employed person by a lot. And then, and what I found really powerful with John is a very different model, because other property people I've spoken to in the past, brokers, they do kind of everything. And so it's a bit hard to kind of, I don't know, it was a bit different. But with John, he's like all of the, how would you put it? All of the hack work. There's a lot of very complex work that goes on, but a lot of the, transactional stuff or whatever it is a power broker. And then I talked to John about strategy. So it's a very different type of model, and I paid for that, and it was worth its weight in gold. So with that new kind of broking model that I really loved, it meant that I didn't meet the criteria because of my reduced income over the 2 years for one investment property. And then John rang me back and he said, mate, listen, I know you can't get one, but I've done some thinking and whatever. How about two? I was like, oh my God, what's happening? So it was just amazing. So with you, the course, John, his model of broking, it's like the planets lined up for me. And for the first time in many years, and this is from the heart, I feel like it's kind of like, well, not kind of, it's like a dream team. It's kind of like a team of people that it's just like gold. For me to trust after so many betrayals, and then to have hope, is hard to express gratitude for. It's a very powerful thing for me. And it's thanks to both of you and the blood, sweat, and tears that went into you creating that course over the years, using statistics and data and creating something that is valid and reliable and does create results for people. It's very, very powerful, because it's finally giving me some real hope and data-driven hope. And you've got this amazing kind of a quantum tool, and you plug in all of the things. And I think, oh my God, if I'm aggressive enough and I put all these properties in this particular way, I can actually, get some passive income that's going to mean that I can retire reasonably, not in the way that I was supposed to or I thought I would, but that's okay. I don't need a lavish lifestyle, but it's giving me hope.
Yeah. That's so, I mean, you're remarkably stoic in the way you relay your story. If I had been through what you have been through, I don't know if I would have had the courage to trust anyone or to invest in property ever again. Like that's just coming from the heart as well. And when we had that phone call, when I had that phone call with you, like it's kind of a big thing to take almost $6,000 from someone, like, whether it's an 18-year-old client who's, busted their ass at a fruit shop for 5 years to save up the money for a deposit, and then they're giving you almost $6,000 for the course, or whether it's you who's been through so many ups and downs, and it's like, you really need this to work. Like, otherwise, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but if this didn't work, I think you would have just called it quits and been like, to hell with property. If I can't trust PK, who's supposedly trustworthy on YouTube, then I can't trust anyone. You know what I mean? Like, it was a big thing for me to take your money, so to speak. I know I'm a business owner, but I'm just speaking from the heart.
I probably would have in a few years just moved to Sri Lanka, and also I don't know what would have happened. It was not looking good. This was kind of the final thing, because I'm almost 60. And this is it, and this is why for me it feels really quite profound, because for me to trust you guys and the data that you have provided is massive, because this is it. I'm not in my 30s as I was. think, I've got 10 years to make errors and be, back then, it would have been the equivalent to crypto or something. Yeah, that's fine. Not knowing what can actually happen. There is no time left. And if I do a 30-year strategy, I'm dead at that stage. And that makes what retirement do you
Who
have?
knows? Like we all might be.
So, maybe flip it there. But, a lot of people say, the 30-year plan. I'm like, yeah, I was having 30 years. And that's not good. So it was kind of the final gasp. But I'm just so grateful that I found you guys.
No, and John, I want to ask you, to the extent that you want to and are able to share, how you went from, not being able to give Paul any servicing, not even for one property, to then being able to buy two. I do want to get to that, but I just want to mine this concept of trust just for one more second, because like I always say, I don't really care if anyone does my course or not. Like it's, we're beyond that now. But what do people need to do to actually build trust? Because I know, John, you've also been in a similar situation in terms of you've been less than impressed with people you've handed over your money to in property circles. From your experience, and this is not about my course, but from your experience, how can someone ascertain, especially if they're brand new to property investing, and let's say they're, on the wiser side of 50, so, they don't have all the time in the world, how can they ascertain who to trust? There's plenty of trustworthy people out there versus who not to trust.
Yeah, well, firstly, PK, thank you so much for having me back on your video again. I feel very humbled. And to everyone who's reached out to me, thank you. I'm always incredibly honored when someone reaches out to me. PK, with that question, who you can trust, as someone, also in my 50s, I wish I had someone that I could have turned to, a mentor. Often, if you can find someone that has been there and done that, because it's not so much the successes that they've had in life, it's the losses that they've had in life. And that's where the wisdom comes in. Paul and I will look at, you guys and the generation coming through now, and it's all worked out. But life gets in the way. And sometimes there are things that you can't teach that a mentor will be able to go, hey, you know what? It's not all peaches and ice cream. There are going to be times in life where it's going to come out and take it underneath from you. And a mentor kind of sometimes will help you on that journey. So if I like my own children, I'm saying to them, find a mentor that you can trust, because that experience and that life skills and things like that. So that's probably the biggest one.
Nice.
And also just be a healthy dose of skepticism. It's always a good thing to have as well. And there's plenty of really good people out there, whether it's, you don't have to use me as broker. There's plenty of good brokers out there. But I think what you've done, PK, is that you've found a way to teach people where they can empower themselves with knowledge. And on behalf of the whole community, thank you, PK. I'm just so grateful to be part of this journey that you've started. So.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be part of it as well. I just created something for myself, and it seems to have become bigger than me now. So I'm very grateful for it. I want to come back to how you were able to get the loans, but I just want to ask Paul one question just initially. It was something playing on my mind, so I hope it's not out of turn. One thing that you said really struck with me, and when it comes to mentoring and things like that, you asked me on the first call that we had, or maybe the second call that we had, you were like, there are plenty of other courses out there, PK. There's one from the Property Couch. Great guys. They have, bundles of integrity. They're also really into data. They're probably more experienced than I am, at least by age, right? It's a cheap course, $500. It's probably very good. I genuinely haven't asked you your answer to this, and none of this is scripted. Hopefully it goes well. But why did you not just do that course? And, there's so many scores out there, boom score, location score, this score, that score. Why not just do that course for $500, save yourself more than $5,000? Why did you end up coming over to our camp, so to speak?
Sure. I think because this is the final kind of shot I've got. And I had to make sure that the person that created the framework in which I would be putting my trust and not saying anything about anyone else at all. I mean, they've got great integrity and everything else, but there was something about you that just felt incredibly authentic and real. And certainly the information that you share on YouTube had stacked up. I looked at older YouTube clips, compared them to new ones. The predictions based on data were accurate. Again, not saying other people had not had this. And for me, watching all of you, I spent many hours watching all of your.
That's why I do it. So I'm happy.
Other people as well, like this, and these are real people. No one's getting paid for this, like these are real people who are wanting to share their stories. And I thought, wow. So, and there is something about you, I think, that does have, there's an authenticity, there's a realness, and this has been backed up in the mentorship experience I've had with you as well, in terms of the responses I've had to lots of emails, lots of questions in the community forum. Yeah, so, and I'm more than $6,000 given the value that I've got out of $6,000 is way more than $6,000. With John, the same thing. Someone who's quality, someone who offers a different level of service, which does have a mentoring component. He's like a good mate who's got your back as well, and there's a really good relationship that's developed. However much it is to pay for the extra, I mean, it's nothing compared to the value you get from it. So I think for me, that's why.
Nice. Thank you. Thanks for answering that. I appreciate it. And this next bit, I hope, is going to bring everyone a ton of value, because it's the age-old question. Hey, I've maxed out my borrowing capacity, or I can't get another loan. How do I get another loan? What to speak of another 2 loans? John, once again, to the extent that you're able to go into the mechanics and the weeds and, the nitty-gritty, how were you able to get Paul, who's, like we're saying, you're close to 60, how were you able to get him 2 loans?
Yeah, it was when I got that call from Paul, I was like, so hang on, Paul, you're earning below average income because of the pandemic. You haven't done your tax returns. You're a discharged bankrupt, and you've got very little savings.
Yeah.
We can laugh about it now, Paul, but remember at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but I'm so genuinely humbled that people reach out to me that I take it very seriously. And now, one of the things that Paul did, that, to his credit, it was I introduced the concept of a para broker or a credit analyst. So I think if there's one thing people take away from this, is that it's important that you equip your broker with a para broker or a credit analyst. And what that person does is works with the broker behind the scenes, chasing the banks with all the scenarios, entering all the information into the calculators. Because what you're finding is your brokers now are very busy just doing compliance. They're very busy with an incredible amount of inquiries on a daily basis, that if you expect your broker to do all this work, then they're only going to deal with the 2 or 3 lenders that they're actually very comfortable with. And if it doesn't work, they won't keep diving harder. So one of the things that I've realized after doing this for 20 years is that the industry has moved to where you need to have a credit analyst internally or a para broker. They're kind of interchangeable. And I explained that to Paul, and to his credit, he goes, yep, let's do it. And it's a cost that I pass on. I don't make anything out of it. I just recruit someone that I know that's very good. So that was the first step. Paul really equipped me with some very, very skilled people. And then we went down the path of strategy about how to go about getting the loan and introducing different loan products. And as a broker that specializes only in investment in investors, I'm very in tune with those lenders that really want to get you to that 4th or 5th or 6th property, whatever that one, that you're trying to get to. And so by osmosis and serendipity to some degree, we were able to get some lenders on board via low doc loans, for example. So, we drilled deeper and deeper, and we came up with a low doc strategy. And what a journey that was. we had to change accountants midway through it. Do you remember, Paul? And
yeah, oh my God.
Yeah, we
do a movie on it, Netflix series.
Yeah, and the banks were taking forever.
Oh my God.
So the time frames kept being pushed out. And yeah, so, you know, Paul and I were having just regular conversations and getting the para broker involved as well. Yeah, so we were able to, you know, find our way through to the appropriate lender and the appropriate low doc lending that was perfect for Paul. And with the first lender, we got, I've got some notes here, 3.14, which is not bad for a low doc loan. And then
that's very good for a low doc loan.
Yeah. And it was just so, you know, as we started getting the wins, Paul, it was just getting better and better. And I was like, come on, Paul, let's get the second one now, mate. You're up and running. You've got your refinance through.
Exciting and stressful. That was wonderful.
Yeah. And then Paul went through a phase of struggling to buy in this certain location that he was looking at. And I was like, having done the course, PK, I was like, Paul, what about these suburbs here? And then bing, the light bulb went off, and Paul was like a bull at the gate, mate. He was found the property, and yeah, kudos to him, you know. So, but there was a lot of heartache and stress and things like that. But we pulled through in the end, and we're talking about 2 more properties now. So from a situation where we had below average incomes, you know, a checkered credit history, very little savings, through to now, you know, having done our second one, we're looking at third and fourth ones, which is, you know, kudos to you, Paul.
Miraculous, John. Oh my God, it's been amazing. And also, I was floundering a little bit with the putting in the wrong information into the course, into the formula, and I think there was just so much going for me. That's what I said. And John, I think we're just having a general conversation. I said, "Oh my God, I'm putting in the wrong information. I don't know what I'm doing." And of course, it's a very easy process if you put in the right information. But I was getting a bit confused at one point, and John said, "Look." Don't ever say I don't look after you, and gave me this list of places. He said, focus on this one. And I was like, and when I looked at the stats, and then I noticed that PK later on, I think it was a week later, you'd also mentioned it in some sort of forum. I thought, oh my God, this place is incredible. Like all the data is just ridiculous. And when I rang up the estate agent, said, yeah, there's only one other competitor, and I put in a reasonable price, and it was straight off the bat accepted. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. It was so exciting.
I mean, it's not every day that you have a broker as enthusiastic and passionate and on your side. Like there's something comforting knowing that the person cares. Is like, okay, they're not just going to clock off at 5 o'clock. You know, if you need them, they're going to be there. That's what I find. And it's not just you, Paul. John has done that for numerous clients. And I think almost every week someone watches the YouTube videos that I've done with John, and they're like, I can't find him on Google. I'm like, it's MANCIAMEL. Yeah, I have to spell the name just so they can. But yeah, highly recommended. And the obviously the other thing is he's done my course, so the community aspect. You know, everyone helping each other. That's really powerful. It
was really important. Sorry to interrupt you there, but that was really significant because John is so a buyer's agent and using the data, and we're all in it together. You're in it, I'm in it, John's in it, and John's like a really good mate who's got my back, who's he's a very busy man, so he can't talk all the time, but when he's available, quality conversations, really inspirational kind of, no, we can do it, you know, that kind of coaching and encouragement, and because it has been really stressful at times, of course, with the level of complexity. So so thank you, PK, for having John on your videos, because otherwise I would never have met him. And this was a really good match made in heaven for me, because it is the last sort of run to the finish line I could make, and thank God I've got you guys.
No, nice one. And maybe just to couple of last things. Are you able to take us through, Paul, your properties? So I know you've got one in Perth and Townsville. What was like, I don't know if you remember the exact numbers, but you know, the purchase price, rent, just some high level info.
Of course. So in Townsville, brilliant suburb, met the criteria. So will be, reasonable growth, I think, in the short term, definitely in the longer term. Bought it for low threes, I think 305. We'll probably need to spend another 7 on it. And it's renting at 385 per week.
Nice.
It's a brick house, so no painting in 5 or 10 years, which is good. The building and pest said, this is a solid house, mate. One of the old red brick ones. This will last you forever. And so really good return. Actually, one of the people you recommend as a property manager, she had someone who's joining their staff who is renting the house. So even more sense of security about that one. Right. The second one
that's a 6.6% yield, PK.
Yeah. And I just want to, that's what's phenomenal about these locations. It's like, you've got a solid asset. And by the way, not all of Townsville floods. There are good pockets and bad pockets like in any town and city. And, 6.6, you just can't go wrong. Interest rates go up. It's like, whatevs, like it's still giving you cash flow. And let me just ask you on that point, John, there's always this kind of age-old, debate. Oh, I should buy within 5 kilometers of Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, CBD. I should buy a blue chip asset. Why are we investing in 300K properties in far North Queensland? Like, what is that ever going to do? You've been in the game, John, for longer than I have. You're more experienced, probably wiser than I am. What is your philosophical or now data-driven take? Is it okay to buy in these regional areas, or do regional areas never grow? Is regional just a terrible investment? Should we be buying $1 million properties only, or are 300K ones okay?
Yeah, that's a really good question, PK. I'm very humbled you've asked me. In fact, I actually did an article on this and pulled the article all together, and I did one for each state of Australia. So capital city versus the major regionals in the I can send it to you if you like. And it's all good news, PK. It's a complete myth, as you well know. It's a complete myth that regionals do not grow. I think the key though is really getting it down to the granular level of the suburb. As we all know, it's the suburb that causes the growth. And the thing is, you will find those capital cities that will have their time in the sun, and the media will go on about it. But we forget that the regionals do grow, and it's statistically proven. If you're welcome to reach out to me, and I can send you the article, whoever's watching this. It's an interesting, very, very interesting number. So look, in answer to your question, particularly at the moment and for the next couple of years, as you know, the regional areas are going to outperform. Sydney and Melbourne's just, when it's not even go there, but they will outperform. And that's why I'm really excited, PK. I get so excited when someone reaches out to me from your clip, because I know what's going to come for them.
Mm.
And whilst people see me as a mortgage broker, I'm actually in the business of delivering investment properties to clients, and I just happen to get monetized through finance. So I'm in this journey with you. And if I don't like if I see an area you don't like, I can't help it. I go, dude, the growth has gone up too much. Like, what are you doing? PK says it's 40%.
Yeah. Just follow the system, right? Like, just follow it.
You don't need to, reinvent the wheel. So look at the data on in this regional area here, and there's so much opportunity. And this country is amazing. This is just an incredible country that, in the space of 10, 15 years, you can really, really change generations of family.
100%. And, if you understand data, Paul, you can probably testify to this, but if you understand data, you don't necessarily need to compete with the herd. Like, I remember so many of us bought in Townsville, including me, last year, and no one was talking about it. No one's talking about it in the news. No one's talking about it in the forums. No one's talking about YouTube. Nowadays there are YouTubers or other people coming out saying Townsville is not a bad idea. I'm like, not a good idea to invest. I'm like, we've already made 30% growth, like in less than 12, and that's going to carry. So the point is that you don't have to follow the herd. You and I, Paul, live in Brisbane. We could easily have bought in Brisbane But could you have got a loan to buy something for $800,000 in Brisbane at a 4% yield? Probably not.
Exactly. And as I was saying earlier, in terms of, when the investors, I'm not sure, but from my experience over the years, tend to be like a herd. If a few of them are getting some runs on the board, others like, oh, what's the name of that place? What's the name of that suburb? And they all converge. And I saw that because I was buying I bought within 2 weeks of each other, but I'd spent a long time researching, putting relationships and all the rest of it with real estate agents. And it was really interesting because when I followed the system exactly, as I was saying earlier, like it took a long time to get Townsville happening. And by the time I'd done that, areas in Perth that I was looking at a month before, 6 weeks before, building relationships with the real estate agents then, and in particular suburbs that were showing the exact kind of meeting the threshold of all the different data points, of which there are many. And then I went back to them and said, "Oh, sorry, mate, it's probably a bit," and it was too late, and the herd had arrived, and then I was competing with so many people. I thought, I'm out of here. I don't want to talk to this estate. I want to go to a different place. And there's this little pocket in Perth that is gold. And I don't know if like you mentioned at one time, certainly John was very generous enough to do the data crunching with your course for me at the time because I was getting a bit flustered. And it's just like, oh my God, the herd haven't arrived. And this is where the opportunities, I think, is before the herd arrive. And this is what the course points you to. They're about to get here. So if you get here now before the massive amount of competition which drives the price up, that's the value.
Yeah. And I think the next few years will really separate the men from the boys, so to speak. When the market isn't just going to go up willy-nilly anywhere and everywhere, there will be genuinely patches which will fall. There will be patches that will continue to grow. There will be patches that will plateau. So in data, we trust, so to speak, that it's just the best thing. I can make mistakes. You guys can make mistakes, but the data is what it is. That's so important to understand.
And the good news in terms of finance in general, PK, it's not doom and gloom. Like the lenders want to lend you money, and there's fierce competition at the moment. So, if you feel like you're maxed out, don't just keep searching and keep pushing, because you'd be surprised,
And contrary to popular opinion, like you know this, John, mortgagee in possession, defaults, all this stuff is at record lows. Like it's at record lows. Like it's even better than pre-COVID levels. So anyone who thinks, there's kind of doom and gloom coming, we just have to rely on the statistics. Maybe the statistics are wrong, in which case I don't know what I'm doing, but that's the best we have to go by.
Yeah. And, interesting, just following on from that point, PK, one of the reasons we're having a rental crisis at the moment is 4 years ago, I was on Sky News and I was calling this. Then the Royal Commission came out. The banks made it so hard to get any sort of construction finance or building finance. It was just hard in general. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to really impact us down the track. And obviously there's all these other influences since then, like the pandemic and labor shortages and stuff like that. But that was no one talks about that period. 3-4 years ago, I had 10 inquiries coming in. The banks were just sitting on their arms saying, no, until this is over. And so we had a couple of years there where we were underfunding construction in the country.
Yeah.
So I've never lived through this period where there's just been such low rental vacancies across the board. I mean, everywhere.
Yeah.
Which it's not a good thing in society. I love Australia being so egalitarian, but as an investor, that's just incredible. That gives you so much comfort moving forward, saying, hey, you know what, if interest rates go up, it doesn't matter. I'm really still going to stay positively geared.
That's it.
Sorry, Pig, I just realized I forgot to mention my second one. I mentioned the first one. Sorry.
And just before you do as well, Paul, I just want to do that segue, because what you said, John, with the rental crisis, where you've bought, Paul, Townsville in that particular pocket, actually in Perth as well, you're going to, famous last words, but you're going to see a $2,000 to $5,000 rental increase in the next 12 months, right? And so interest rates are going up, let them go up. We're going to get the capital growth and the rent's going to offset the interest rate rise. That's the reality. And as long as you have good property investors that take care of their tenants, that's actually what Australia needs. It needs more property investors because the government does a pretty lousy job in social housing, to be honest. They just don't have enough of it. So we need more private sector housing, and it's investors like you, Paul, that are solving the problem that you're, John, talking about. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead with the second.
No, sorry, I completely forgot to give you the second property. So the second property is in Perth. The numbers, basically, I bought it for $350, fully renovated. It's on a sand pit, so a bit of landscaping, probably 10K of sand of landscaping. So it'll be about 360, I think 360, 365. It's looking between 400 and 430 per week rent.
Amazing. So I think I'll just sort of last thing I'll ask you guys is just kind of like your best advice for someone in your situation. Paul, you were on the other side of the river, you grabbed a boat, you crossed the river, you have that luxury of perspective and hindsight now. And I think the good thing is that you sort of had the curiosity to know yourself. You've been through hell and back, so to speak. You had the curiosity to know yourself, and then you had the courage to do something about it. You had the courage to be yourself. I want to be a property investor. I'm not going to, just rely on a government pension. I'm actually going to set myself up for retirement. You had both the curiosity and the courage. The question that I have for you, Paul, is how can other people build the courage to achieve what not you're achieving, but also you will achieve in the future? How can they actually get there in your sort of age bracket and with your experiences?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for me, it's, I've always kept true to my values, being very compassionate, but also being quite upset with people, processed a lot of that negative emotion through me. So coming out the other end, feeling very good about myself because I did hold on to my values. I haven't really been, haven't done anything in, kind of response to a lot of things that have happened. And the other thing is, it is so easy once you've had so many setbacks that are incredibly unfair, to start to lose hope. There was a thing almost like learned helplessness. But it's just that sense that if there's learning along the way, like looking back and reviewing and learning and thinking, okay, I do have a bit of naivety, so I need to work on that. I do trust people too easily. I need to work on that. I'm not going to lose my trust in humanity or you guys and a few others. But it has to be earned in a way. It has to be demonstrated through actual, evidence. And then just not to lose hope. And from that perspective, then it's overcoming fear of, I'm too old, or I'm too this or that, and just taking action. And there were so many times during this process where I was thinking, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing anymore because I've been through so many bad experiences, thinking, in finance, I'm hopeless or whatever. And because of all, it's all been such a disaster, even though all of it really hasn't been, exactly myself to blame. But anyway, and then there was that sense of, anxiety and self-doubt. And just thinking, no, just trust the data. The data doesn't lie. And I've got two people in my life, which are you guys, and the course and the data, and just to take action, even when I felt like I haven't got the energy, I don't have the confidence, I don't feel like I can, and just do it anyway. So there'll be times I bring up real estate and just going, this is not going to work. That's okay. Keep doing it anyway. So for me, that's been a really important part of the process.
It's so good to hear that. So good to hear that. I see the journey come full circle. So it's really rewarding for me to hear your words. And John, what would be your advice to someone in their 50s that is thinking, hey, I'm not rich, I'm on a normal income, maybe less than average income. Should I get into property investing? I've left my retirement planning way too late. I should have started 20 years ago, but there's nothing I can do about that now. What would be your advice to them just generally and maybe from a finance perspective as well?
Yeah. Well, firstly, Paul, your inspiration, mate. Thank you. You've inspired a lot of people that are going to be watching this. So kudos to you. And PK, just keep doing what you're doing, mate. You're changing people's lives.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you.
Look, you'd be surprised at what you can do if you can reach out to someone that you can trust, then you'd be surprised what you can do. You know, you may not have any cash, but maybe your parents have got some cash. All right. There are so many ways to get in, but you've got to have that desire, that willingness, and what I call confirmation bias. Surround yourself by people that really want this to work for you, okay, and that don't have a hidden agenda. And then you'll be surprised how all the ducks will fall into place. Now, when it comes to someone like me, I really want you to take away the thought of whether you use me or another broker, it's gotten to a point now where finance, you need to have a credit analyst. So if you're thinking it's all too hard and it's not, I'm not sure if I can borrow anymore and that sort of stuff, then sometimes it's just about equipping your broker with a credit analyst or a para broker. It's something we haven't discussed before in the past, PK, but that's where the industry is heading at the moment. And what it does is it opens up that broker from working 3 or 4 hours initially on your file to improve your borrowing capacity to 20 hours. And all of a sudden the nuggets start to appear and solutions start appearing. And in your 50s, you should have had some super. So, perhaps inquire with your financial planner or accountant about that avenue. That's an amazing resource. It's just sitting there waiting for you to get started. So as you can see, I could talk about this for hours. Just
Yeah, no, I'm very humbled by having you guys on my side as well, so to speak. The character that you've shown, Paul, and the expertise that you bring, John. And I think my 2 cents, for what it's worth, is we compare ourselves too easily. We think that I'm of a certain age. I should have had a partner by now. I should have had 2 kids by now. I should have had a Mercedes in the garage. I should have had a paid off house. But we, create these expectations, this pressure for us. But in truth, we're not better or worse than anyone, right? We're not ahead or behind anyone else. We're all on our own journeys. And so my advice to anyone who's watching, whether they're in their 50s, 60s, or 40s or whatever, is just be true to yourself. Have the curiosity to know yourself, and then have the courage to be yourself. That's kind of something I've been meditating upon lately. So I thought I'd reiterate that. And you guys are really good examples of that. So once again, Paul Martin is his last name, by the way, guys. If anyone wants to, in the community and client community, if anyone wants to tag him and ask any further questions, Paul, thank you so much for your time. I'm very grateful. And
thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Me hope.
And John as well, of course. I know everyone's going to want to know how to spell your last name. So John Menciamelli.
Yeah, maybe it's just easy to say Hunterwood. If you just Google hunterwood.com.au, that's the name of my business. And yeah, it's all there. But, PK, again, it's all, you've started this, and we're all so humble, mate, because you brought data into our world in a way that possibly no one has. And you've explained it in a way that's pretty sexy, mate. So
all right, well, thank you so much, guys, and for everyone who's watching or listening, thank you for doing so. Hopefully this inspired you. These isn't just normal stories that, John's not trying to sell something, Paul's not trying to sell something per se. These are just real human beings who are at a stage in their lives where they don't have to get on a Zoom session with me, but I'm very grateful that they did. So hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, give this video a thumbs up or share it, all that kind of good stuff. And I'll just reiterate exactly what Paul said before. I don't mind whether it's with me or not, but take action.